Hey friends. So my book is not something that I talk about very often here on my channel. And I think there are a number of reasons why. This book is super emotional for me. It is essentially a journal of a time that was so hard. And when I published the book, I really didn't do a very good job of promoting the book. And I think because it felt strange to be promoting something that was so sad and so personal and so heartbreaking for so many women. As you probably know if you've been around here for a while, there is a happy ending to this book, though when I started writing it, I didn't know that there would be a happy ending. It was very much from a place of, I have had these losses, I don't know what to do with myself anymore, and I don't know how to be hopeful anymore. And in a way, I wrote myself out of that feeling. Gratefully, my rainbow baby is now a healthy, insane 5-year-old. And I feel like I'm doing a disservice to you by not sharing this book more with you, because I do know how powerful it is to hear other women's stories and to hear stories from that place of absolute heartbreak. So I want to do a better job of sharing this book with you so that you can hopefully take something from it and find your way out of that heartbreak as well. So my plan for today is just to read to you the very first chapter. If you enjoy this video and would like to hear more of the book, leave me a comment below letting me know that so I know to make more videos like this. Or if you'd like to read the book for yourself, I'll leave the link below. Before we get started, fair warning, it has been a very long time since I read any of these words. So I can't promise that emotions won't bubble up and over, but if they do, that's how I just like to look at now. That emotion is the love that I feel for those babies I lost. Whew, here we go already. Let's go. Introduction. So I started each chapter with a quote, and this is how I start. "It's your grief, my darling, and fuck anyone who wants to tell you how to do it." And that was a quote from the TV show Offspring, which I watched a lot of during this time that I was writing. Welcome to the shittiest club that you never asked to be a part of. Grieving for a baby lost in your womb is inexplicable to anyone who has not felt it. You will feel lost and broken, lonely and angry, heartbroken and desperate longing for your baby. What helped me the most when I was in the thick of grief was hearing stories of what other women had been through and how they felt. While it didn't stop the pain, it helped me feel a little less alone, knowing others had done it before me and survived to find the light again. It made me feel like maybe if they could endure this, then I could too. The most overwhelming feeling I've felt in this whole process has been feeling lost to grief. My lowest points were those when I was unable to see the way out, when I could no longer see how I could possibly keep living with the grief I felt, and when I was unable to imagine a life where the immense pain of losing my babies would ever fade. I feel so much compassion for the person who wrote this past version of myself, and I can still feel through these words how much pain I was in at the time. I remember that pain and how inescapable it felt. These times were my darkest. I felt like giving up. I've spent hours desperately searching for an answer to stop the pain. I've ugly cried and screamed and felt unable to get out of bed. Maybe you've had these moments too. I hope that in these moments, this book can be a comfort to you. I hope my words and those of the other women who share in this book might hold your hand and your heart through your darkest places. I honestly never thought this would be my story, though of course losing a baby is one of those things that no one expects to happen to them. We know it happens, of course, to friends of friends, to aunties, to cousins, to sisters, to other people. We never imagine it will happen to us. We know the statistics, we just never expect we will be the statistic. For some reason, our brains forget that someone has to be. Even after you experience it once, you don't expect to luck out again and experience it multiple times over. I battled with why for over a year. Why us? Why our babies? Why now? Why our family? And all the other fun variations of why. What did we do wrong? What's wrong with my body? What did we do to deserve this? Why, why, why? The constant questioning is exhausting. It's all-consuming. It sucks all the joy out of your life. It makes connecting with other people, even your partner, extremely difficult. It makes so much of your life before losing your baby and what you worried about then feel insignificant and incredibly unnecessary. At the same time, it makes other parts of your life feel insurmountable, too big and too scary to get through. After our 3 losses in 2016 and early 2017, I found myself in a very dark place. I'd never felt more alone in my life. Despite our best efforts to be there for each other, our individual battles with grief took Andrew, my husband, and I on very different roads, and at one point I could no longer see where they came back together. We both knew after our 3rd loss that we would not be trying again in a hurry, perhaps not ever. He, because he couldn't imagine having to watch me go through it all again. Me, because I knew that some, if not all of the problem, was my highly anxious state. I knew if I were to try again straight away, it would nearly certainly end in another loss. I carried a heavy stone of guilt in my belly about losing our babies, and although a part of me could understand that I didn't do anything wrong, I also held on to that guilt like a cross to bear. It felt like I'd completely forgotten how to enjoy the life I already had, because I was so focused on trying to bring a new life into our family. Of course, I was grateful for our 2 healthy boys. I was grateful that Andrew had been on my side through all of it, but I wasn't connected to any of it. In my heart and head, I was too busy battling my own grief demons to enjoy how blessed I already was. After our 3rd loss, a wise woman reached out to remind me that I needed to start watering the flowers of my life and not just the weeds. I was already thinking it was time for me to shift my focus onto finding joy again, and this message felt like a confirmation from the universe. I needed to teach myself how to live without another baby. I needed to be okay with the fact that there might never be another baby for us. I wasn't entirely giving up, but I did need to give myself a break from it all. I needed time to find myself and the light again. Within this book, I share my journey through grief with you. I hope to show you that there is a way out, not necessarily by having another baby, but by watering the flowers you already have. This book is not the words of someone who has passed through grief and is now talking to you from the other side, as many of the books on baby loss seem to be. I wrote these words on some of my darkest days. I've read too many books on grief and loss that have been written from a very resolved place, from authors who had already made peace with their losses. But I wanted to read words of someone who was in the same place I was, not someone who would tell me that time would heal my wounds, even if that were the truth. When you're still feeling the intense pain of a fresh loss, it is extremely hard to hear this perspective. While I could appreciate that maybe one day I'd be able to look back and feel this way too, at the time I wanted words that spoke of how they felt during the process of healing, not after it had already happened. I needed raw honesty. I wanted to read my emotions on a page. I wanted words that mirrored how to be as sad as I was without feeling like I should be coping better or be more grateful for what I already had. So I started writing from that place. When I started, I didn't know what the ending of this book would look like, nor did I know how long it would take me to get there. While this book is about grief and my personal journey through it, I hope that it's also a story of great love, of finding joy, and of hope. I can't always feel all of these things, but I'm certainly always looking for them. I want to encourage you to do the same. Even in your darkest moments, keep watering the flowers of your life. Let me be clear though, this is not a book about overcoming grief. I'm not even sure I believe that's possible anymore. From the many women I've spoken to, some whose losses were over 40 years ago, losing a baby is not something you ever completely overcome. Instead, we have to find a way to reconcile the loss within us. It becomes a part of our story, and we get to decide what meaning our loss takes on for us long term. It's about finding a way to hold both love and sadness within us at the same time. This book is for those of you still in the darkness, for those of you who feel lost and lonely within the transition of loss. It's for you who is in the most excruciating pain you'd never imagined, for those of you who feel numb to it, and for those of you who aren't really sure how to feel. Let this book be your guide home. Let it help you find your way again. Let it help you to start putting the broken pieces of yourself back together. No, they won't ever come back in completely the same way as before. You will be forever changed. But I think that too can be a good thing, eventually. Right now, you might find yourself wishing you could go back to before, when you were naive to it all, where the world was not such a scary and painful place. But the reality is, this new place, this new way of being in the world, is also in part about creating you. This experience will change you into the person you need to be. You will see the world in a completely new way. Your perspective will be forever changed. You will know with absolute clarity what is important in your life and what is not. Everything meaningless will drop away. Eventually, you may even be able to see this new version of yourself as better than the one before. Though of course, it won't feel like this in the beginning. In the beginning, it will all just feel fucking unfair. You will find yourself muttering or crying out loud, "This is so unfair." You may even feel like you don't want to go on, but you can, and you will, and you need to go on. Because if you allow yourself to go through the grief, if you can allow yourself to embrace your new reality, however reluctantly, you will discover that grief also brings us gifts. Strength, perspective, bravery, connection, empathy. A new way of being in the world that is fully present to all of it. The good, the bad, the ugly, the painful, the joy, and the despair. While it's not all going to be good, having your eyes fully open to life is a powerful new way to experience it. I will warn you though, the journey to this new place might be a long one. You may find yourself taking one step forward and 5 steps back. You may catch yourself numbing the pain rather than dealing with it. You may at some point, or at many points along the way, feel like you're never going to make it. Then one day you will. Slowly things will start to change. The pain will feel a little less jagged and unbearable, and you will find a way to make meaning of your loss that has previously felt completely unfair and meaningless. Of course, you may never find a good explanation for why you lost your baby, but eventually your soul will be able to understand that all of this has happened for a reason, whatever you decide that to be. One of the surprising things I found about grief is how we need others to get through it. We need their stories to mirror back to us our own thoughts and feelings. They help us to understand our own grief. If we try to battle grief alone, we get so lost in the fog of it that we can't see who we are now or who will eventually be on the other side. It can feel like a lonely road that we are destined to walk on forever. It can be difficult to understand our own feelings, and it can feel like no one else understands us either. But when we feel heard and understood, we can start to make sense of what's happened. I can't explain how it works, but being seen and understood by others helps us to find a way to make the absolute awfulness of our situation feel somewhat okay. Truthfully, this is a horrible, shitty club to be a part of. This I lost a baby and life feels fucking unfair club. But one day you'll find a way to the other side of it. You never get to leave the club, of course, but you'll know that you're starting to get there when you find yourself welcoming others to it, offering others who go through this loss your story and your love, as I hope this book will do for you. Before we get into my story, I just want to put it out there that at the time of writing these words, I do not know whether or not there will be a baby at the end of this book. And that's really not the point. I have not written this book because I know the secrets to overcoming all the barriers to infertility and how to get your baby. I'm sorry if that's what you came here for. That is not this book. As I write these words today, I'm unsure whether I'll ever hold another newborn child of my own in my arms. But I'm determined to find a way back to happy anyway. The aim of this book is to hopefully share how we can go on living and loving, regardless of whether our story includes a baby or not. It's about whether we can open ourselves back up to the joy of life and all its brutal and amazing experiences, knowing that there are no guarantees that it will all turn out okay. And maybe it will also be about being brave enough to open ourselves up to love again, when we know that loss may be the outcome. I think we all want to believe that we will get our happy ending. But what if we don't? At what point do we need to make the decision to find our happiness regardless of the outcome? And can it be done? This book is not about overcoming the grief of losing a baby. It's about finding a way to go on living a full life anyway. It's about finding a way to make peace with your losses. It's about doing the work to heal your heart and creating a life that makes you happy, not despite your losses, but because of them. Thanks for sticking around to the end. If you enjoyed this reading and would like for me to go on and do more of these videos, please let me know in the comments. If you'd like to read this book for yourself, the link to find it will be in the description box below. Thanks for being here.